Welcome to the Church Solutions Podcast, brought to you by JSL Solutions. The Church Solutions Podcast is designed to help equip you and your church in the use of technology and other tools and services. And now, here are your hosts, Steve Lacy and Phil Thompson.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Church Solutions Podcast.
Hi, my name is Steve Lacy.
And I'm Phil Thompson. We are with a company called JSL Solutions, and we provide technology solutions, so to speak, for churches and ministries and even some small businesses, such as streaming video, which would be StreamingChurch.tv.
And we also offer Church App Live, which is interactive apps for churches, and myflock.com, which is website management, church management, and some social tools integrated.
Yeah, so we got really three products that we offer churches, ministries, and people. And today we are going to talk about an area that's related to the streaming platform, although not entirely related. In fact, it's really related to all three of them. And if you hear some hammering in the background and some noise in the background, we are working out of Steve's home office, and he has got a home project going on upstairs.
Yes.
And what are they doing up there? Working on your closet?
Working on, bathroom closet.
Well, your wife needs a really big closet.
She does.
Speaking of social media stuff that we're going to cover here, we're very much aware of your wife's clothing and shoes and other stuff that she has because of her social media involvement. So, hey, if you want to follow Steve's wife, it's Tina Lacy, right? On Facebook. So, Steve, today we're going to talk about something that's near and dear to us. And it really relates. We're going to talk about streaming video and how it relates to streaming video, but it's not just streaming video.
Right. So we're talking about the reasons your church would need an online host.
The reasons your church should really have a church online host or an online host. We're going to
Or online pastor. Yeah.
Online pastor could be one of those things. Just depends. And, I say this every time, but because we have a wide range of churches that not only are our customers with the products we have, but also I know people, listening to this podcast. And we have small churches, large churches, medium-sized churches. I know that some of you are like, well, how would that affect me? So just stay tuned here, folks, and we'll try to cover this.
Right?
Well, first of all, what is it? Let's talk about what is. So obviously, it's 2015 right now. If a church is not online in some form or another, you're not, in my opinion, really engaging in today's culture.
Right.
So, a church needs to be where people are. I've taught this for years, and I think, where people gather. If you look even in the Old Testament and the New Testament, the prophets, the teachers, Jesus himself, the apostles, they always went where people were.
Right.
They rarely expected people to come to them. There may have been some occasions, but usually they went where everybody was at, where they were gathering, where they were
right. So the church needs to do the same.
I really think so.
So you've got some stats here about where are the people at? Where are the people at?
This company called Pew Research found that 72% of online adults use social media. That's a pretty high rate of adults, 70% according to Pew Research. And so every age group really continues to experience growth, and even those over 65. They're getting more and more involved online in some form or another. And I think there's a stat here, those over 65 have tripled their usage in the last 4 years alone, from like 13% in 2009 to 43%, which was actually, I think, last year that they came up with that stat. So it's probably even grown even more. So, again, getting back to stats here, despite the overwhelming trends in the social media use, there's another company called Lifeway Research that discovered that less than half of all churches are engaged on Facebook. And so that's about a full 40% that are not using any social networking tools. So, in my opinion, you're missing the boat here. So, obviously, we do streaming video, but we're not just talking about streaming video here. We're talking about Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, different places where people are at today. So, I hope, so my case for this little podcast today is that there should be somebody in your church or ministry that has some responsibility to kind of be involved in this
in
realm.
this arena, huh? Hanging out in this place where the people are, huh?
I think so. A volunteer. And look, there's got to be somebody in your church that likes social media. I mean, okay, you might be saying, well, Phil, we can't hire somebody. We don't have the budget, Well, okay, but maybe right now you could put a volunteer that really would have a passion for this involved in it. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to be a huge chunk. We've talked about social media here before. It can be overwhelming. So maybe just pick one platform.
Right.
Facebook's one of them. But let's talk a little bit about how this whole thing works.
So what we're going to talk about what is an online host or an online pastor.
So I would think that the first thing that an online host would do is, and this can be with streaming video, and of course we have a product, StreamingChurch.tv, which has a very interactive platform. So people are not just watching video, but they have the opportunity to engage in chat and use some of the social media stuff. So I think an online host or pastor, whoever you want to call this person, needs to really engage in the viewers or engage in the people that are on the platform.
Yeah, I consider it's much like when someone comes to your facility. A lot of churches feel it's important to have a greeter or ushers or someone that's going to be able to direct them, answer their questions, welcome them, shake their hand, say, we're glad you're here, that sort of thing. So the online host is basically taking that job and going online with that same job.
And you can have several online hosts. I mean, let's talk specifically for just a moment about streaming video. All right. But we can talk about some of these other platforms. All right. So somebody logs on, and if you have a platform, and if you don't have one of these, you should consider it. And we have customers that love our platform. And then we have customers that say, well, it's okay, but I just want people to see the video. I think you're missing out by not having a chance for your people to interact.
Right.
Because that's what people today are looking for, especially this next generation. They want to do a little interaction. Yeah, there's going to be people that just want to watch the video, they want to watch the live service or the archive, but most people, you'd be surprised, want to ask questions.
They want to interact, or they want to see people interacting.
Yeah.
I mean, some people want to, maybe I don't want to join in the chat, but I want to see what people are talking about. So it's just, it's a lot like coming to your facility, but you're coming online and
it's in some ways replicating the experience online. And so, and the nice thing about that kind of stuff is, I was a part of your church's deal for a long time. You get to talk to people all over the world, literally, and that to me is a lot of fun to do that. So to me, the online person, whoever that is, needs to be able to engage in viewers. So when somebody logs on, if you've got things set up in your platform a certain way, when it comes to streaming, greet the person.
Right.
Greet them, literally. Like you just said earlier, somebody walks in your facility, you're going to greet them, I hope.
Yeah, you're going to say, you're not going to run the other way. You're going to go, hey, welcome to this. My name's Joe. What's your name?
Yeah. And then, like when we're talking about the streaming video platform, at least with our platform, and we're pretty unique out there, but some people have copied us. You have the ability to actually put some interactive features on the platform as an administrator, or hopefully as a web host, you're church online host. So you could actually put stuff on that platform and rotate it, kind of like a billboard when you're driving down the street. Some of these new billboards, you're going down the interstate and they literally change before your eyes, which is, I think, awesome. Great marketing tool. Well, you've got that kind of that same feature here with our company, is you can actually click a button on your mouse if you're an administrator and change a hyperlink and an image right under the video. And then people could click on that. So if it's a pastor's blog, if it's you're soliciting for people to sign up for an event, perhaps giving online.
Right. Yeah.
All those
kind
of
some of the examples. It comes time for tithes and offerings, and you switch that out to the giving button.
Yeah. So
pastor refers to a scripture or whatever, then you can have that reference linked right there.
Exactly. So that's an interactive feature. So in my opinion, your host or your people that are designated for this can drive this interactive features. They can use them to their full advantage on the platform. And now obviously that's with StreamingChurch.tv. There's other platforms that can't do that. which is why you might want to consider coming over to us. But anyhow, but also let's take it to the other realm. Let's take it to Facebook. Let's take it to Twitter or Google Plus or Google Hangouts or whatever. You can still do some of that stuff by responding to people, when they come and like your Facebook page,
right,
or like a picture that you've posted. You need to interact with them and respond and thank them for liking it, and a lot of people just drop the ball on this. They don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're missing an opportunity to interact with people online, not just with the streaming platform, but other things that are out there,
right,
that we just mentioned.
So getting back to the beginning here a little bit, we talked about an online host, and we also put in parentheses or an online pastor.
Right.
So let's talk about the distinction between the host and the pastor.
Well, again, this is going to depend on your church and who you've got that's capable of doing that. I would think that you could have somebody that you really trust that has some ministry experience, maybe an elder, a deacon, somebody that has some background could qualify as an online pastor, that depending on your leadership team.
So how I see this, the roles are a little bit different, and they can be shared as well.
Right.
When the host is typically going to be meet and greet and answer questions and that sort of thing.
Right.
And then the online pastor is going to be, praying privately with people. Kind of, at our physical experience, we offer the opportunity for people to pray with, an elder after the service, and they kind of point out who the elders are, and so they're doing more ministry online, whereas and the online pastor can do all of the online host things, the meet and greet and all that sort of thing, and depending on who the host is, they can do some of the pastoring piece of it, or at least connecting them up with
let's back up the tape a little bit to when I was the church online guy at your church, and I've got a lot of ministry experience, and so my position as a church online pastor there, which was a part-time paid position, there was a lot to. I had a lot of vision for it, and there was other people in the church that had vision for it too. Don't get me wrong, and still do. But to me, the online pastor is somebody that could be also the driving force as far as the vision for it, and to really kind of keep it in front of the church as a whole, and also get it to the next level. You know what I mean? So that you're thinking, see, it's so hard. I know I'm talking to pastors out there right now, and I know you're going, I've got so much on my plate. I got to do this. I got to do that. So if you can find somebody that's got a vision and a passion for something, and in this case, church online stuff, if you can hand that over to them and work with them occasionally, meet with them occasionally and let them take off with the vision, they'll get it to a whole nother level.
And some churches are doing a really good job with this. That reminds me of, I could tell this quick story, a church that was having video issues. And they really caught this vision of being able to interactive and ministering online. And so they had a really good, I'd consider him a web pastor. And some of the things that they had done that I thought was a really good idea is that the pastor shared his teaching notes with the online pastor. So the online pastor knew what point was coming up next and what the scripture references were and all of that information. Well, anyway, this particular church had camera or video issues one morning, and they weren't able to get their stream going to the video. But this online pastor, he stepped up and said, the service would normally be starting. I'm sorry, we have a broken camera. I don't know what the issue was, but they weren't able to get their video. But they had our platform in place. And the online pastor said, okay, first point is this. And he basically delivered the whole message via the chat room. Wow. And everybody was participating in the chat room. And while they didn't get to see the pastor deliver it, they got to have this online pastor deliver the whole message.
Nice.
I was very impressed.
Yeah. Well, the sky's the limit as far as creativity goes. And so a church online pastor, that title pastor, it could be he or she that really, is kind of, how do I want to say this? It's got seasoned enough to be qualified to actually work with people. Some of your hosts may be young. They may be new. They may not want to kind of be involved in a pastoring role, but they want to be involved in hosting and answering maybe some questions. Like, for instance, going back to what we used to do at your church, we had a guy that was a host who found us online somewhere. His name was Don Young. He may be listening today, I don't know, to this podcast, but Don was way over in Ohio, Pennsylvania area. And he ended up becoming a host for us.
Right.
And so I was technically the church online pastor, and we actually did some breakaways. Speaking of creative things, we actually would break away, and there'd be a camera in an office that I was in.
That online host
I would
was
welcome people.
Right. So people see who's behind the chat.
Exactly. And then I'd go back out to the auditorium, to the sanctuary, whatever we want to call it, worship center, and join the service, and then we'd break away. We were doing that for a while with me. But Don would also be a host who would greet people, even though he was 2,000 miles away. He would greet people online, answer questions. I mentioned earlier about the platform, about the interactive platform, putting different images on the platform and hyperlinks. He did all that.
Right.
I don't know what he's doing today because I'm no longer with the church, but his whole family actually kind of got involved.
Right. And that was just fruits of having an online ministry, a rich online ministry. Because if we didn't have the interactivity, we never would have gotten to know Don.
Right. And other people.
Yeah.
There are people today that I've Facebook friends with who are across the country,
right,
and maybe even across the world, who we actually have corresponded a little bit via Facebook, and it's not it's Facebook, but I get a lot out of my conversations sometimes on Facebook with people. I mean, it can be a real relationship. It can be. So when you interact with people, you're making friends, you're connecting with people. We've had people recommit their life to God through prayer, through discussions on the chat platform. Just the sky's the limit. There was a testimony I think we have online from a church up in Oregon who, a fella was on his deathbed and gave his heart to God.
Right.
And it was all through the church online experience.
Yeah. This is a great story as well. The guy contacted the pastor and said, I go to your church. And he's like, I don't know who you are. And he's got a really small church. Yeah. And he goes, well, I don't actually come to your church in the flesh, but I attend online.
Right. I watch online.
The pastor went and visited him with it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, there's lots of stories out there about how that actually changes people's lives, and I think when if we don't have somebody that's taking the ball, that's the whole point of this podcast today, is somebody that's going to be an online host or online pastor, whatever fancy title you want to give it, but that person's taking responsibility, or maybe even building a team. Because really, it's like anything else in ministry. You can get burned out if you just do it yourself all the time. Mm-hmm. But if you can create a team of several people, it doesn't take a lot that will get involved.
This doesn't need to be, this isn't necessarily a paid position as well, right?
No, it doesn't have to be. Yeah. When I was at your church, mine was a part-time paid position, and I did put energy into it. But again, if for people listening to this podcast, maybe eventually it will be a paid position.
Right. So a common complaint we get is, oh my gosh, we're just barely getting by to do what we're doing. Yeah. We don't have anyone around that's going to be able to be our online host. What would you say to those guys?
Well, there's a word in the Greek that, and I'll just give you the literal translation. It's called baloney. No, I'm being funny here. So my point is this: with anything you have, if you have a money problem at your church, you don't have a money problem. You have a vision problem. If you have a volunteer problem, in an area of your ministry, you don't have a volunteer problem. You have a vision problem. You're not sharing the vision and the passion for what you feel like you want to accomplish as a leader or leaders in your church.
Yeah. So translation there, if you have the vision and people catch your vision, they're going to volunteer. Well, and they're going to give and they're going to invest.
I think that's true just from my own experience. Okay. I've heard people teach this too, but for me, it's true. I've when I was senior pastor for about 8 years, and even when I've been involved in leadership as executive pastor or somebody that was a key leader as far as volunteer, if people caught the passion for something, the vision for something, they would get involved. And so, it's, I don't want to make people feel bad out there, but the truth is, if you really want to see this happen, then you've got to develop a vision for it and a passion and a strategy for it, to make it work. There's going to have to be a little bit of strategy involved in this whole thing. So I think that that's really the driving force in anything. So yeah, we're a company, StreamingChurch.tv. We have people use our products all the time. Some really follow what we're talking about here and have a lot of success. Other people just, we just want them to see the video. And you know what? If that's all you guys can do, okay, that's fine. But I really think there's more to the picture if you will really, get involved and develop it. That's all we're trying to say here.
Right.
And I think when we're not involved with people online, whether social media, streaming video platforms, whatever it might be, we're missing out on if your church wants to reach people, you're missing out on a large group of people that are online. And if you're not online to some degree, you're missing the boat. That's all I'm saying. So as we talk about the responsibilities, engaging your viewers, driving those interactive features, taking advantage of them, social media, we've talked about this before, but there's lots of platforms out there, and I agree, it's overwhelming. I mean, even the stuff that we do with our company, I post something, we've got 3 products on Facebook. Well, 2 anyhow. We don't really put My Flock much on Facebook, but we've got all these products, and so we're looking at Facebook, Google Plus, or whatever it's called. What's the other one? LinkedIn. We have our own little blog platform. We have our YouTube channel. I mean, just doing this podcast, and after I mix it and upload it and put it on Apple iTunes, it's a process. Right. I mean, it takes a while to do this. Got to do this, that, and it's so I understand it can be overwhelming. I'm saying all this because if you're sitting here going, I just can't do all this. Okay, I understand. We get it. Just pick one.
Right.
Just try one. And I would recommend Facebook.
Right.
That's where I would start. I'd start with Facebook. Yeah. Unless for some reason you've already got something going with Twitter, or there's just something that your church has embraced, your people have embraced, whatever it might be, LinkedIn or whatever, go with what people have embraced. Maybe do a little survey. Hey, folks, how many people are on Facebook? Just see who's on, You might be surprised. So I think the church online host, manage those social media platforms, or at least one of them. And then the other thing too, which, we've talked about this before, but archives are really pretty important.
Right.
So, our company, StreamingChurch.tv, we provide a media vault. So you can stream live and capture your product and put it on the media vault. And, but you can also, capture whatever it is you're doing and put it on YouTube.
Right. We found that, people are checking you out online first. And one of the first things they're going to online is to look at one of your sermon archives. They want to say, what is this teaching like? What's this pastor like?
Right.
Before they show up in person. So they're checking out your videos or audios or whatever, podcasts of your teachings.
So, as an online host, this could be one of your job descriptions, is really managing those archives.
Yeah.
And if it's video, and by the way, you could put just little snippets of video on. Doesn't have to be, the whole message. And then, the audio part of it, podcast, you can go as far as you want with this. We have a podcast, which is what people are listening to right now, and it's uploaded to iTunes as well as our other platforms out there. So you might be listening on YouTube because we just have the audio here on YouTube, or you might be on iTunes. But you could certainly do that with your church. And, my church, we don't actually have a bona fide podcast, but we put it on our website. Mm-hmm. And so people can just go to our website. We also put it on Facebook and Twitter. But if I really wanted to work hard at it, which wouldn't be that hard, but initially I would need to set up some kind of an RSS feed, for Apple or whatever, iTunes, which I know we struggled with to do this, and we finally got it worked out. It's not the easiest thing to do, but once you get some instructions down, you can make it work. But if you don't know, if you want some help on that, let us know. We'll help you. But so all those things.
RSS is pretty straightforward. It's Apple that's the problem. They say, the images has to be this exact size.
Yeah, because with iTunes, it's not just the RSS.
No,
right?
There's a little more to it with iTunes.
There's images and graphics that go up to
authors and Yes, all this stuff.
But you can make it work, and there's actually companies out there that will help you do some of that, I guess, as well. So getting back to what we're doing here as we wrap this up today, reasons you need a church online host or church online pastor. Have somebody that can take responsibilities for these things we've just been talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you can get the ball rolling and pass it on to somebody else, great. But it will enhance what you're trying to do as a church because people are online. I mean, that's the bottom line. It's 2015. It's not going away.
Mm-hmm.
There's people online, and it's growing.
All right.
And so find a platform and get on it. So there we go.
All right. Sounds good.
So how can people get a hold of us, Steve?
So they can email us at support@StreamingChurch.tv.
Support@StreamingChurch.tv.
Or visit StreamingChurch.tv, and all our contact info is there. You can email, fax, phone, whatever.
Yeah, and speaking of social media, I mean, we got a company that does mobile apps, so churchapplive.com. You can go there, and you can, people can use the mobile app that we have to interact as well. And not only watch archives and stuff and listen to podcasts, but actually interact with each other, church check-in and all that stuff. So check out churchapplive.com.
Church teaching challenges, all kinds of fun stuff.
Yeah, so there's lots of opportunities we provide as a company, and there's other people out there as well. So if you have questions, by all means, let us know. Support@StreamingChurch.tv, and we'd be happy to try to help you in any way we can. So we're out of time. Hopefully this has been helpful. If you have some feedback on this or questions, or you just think we're out to lunch here, let us know. We'd love to hear from you. And like us on iTunes. Like us. Give us a review. And anywhere else you happen to find us, we're out there. We'll try to help you. Okay, so on behalf of Steve Lacy, I'm Phil Thompson. Thanks again for listening to our little podcast here, our Church Solutions podcast. We will catch you again next week. Have yourself a great week, what's left of it, and we'll talk to you soon.